Let's talk about the infamous cutoff scores for Australia PR. You know, those numbers that seem to decide your fate. One minute you're on top of the world with 85 points. The next, you're asking yourself why people are getting invited at 95 while you're still refreshing your inbox like it owes you money. The cutoff score is not just some random figure plucked out of thin air. It's not the Australian government throwing darts at a board. There are real reasons behind it, and today we're pulling the curtain back. We're not doing the usual dry breakdown of this occupation, that occupation. Nope. We're digging into what really drives these numbers and why they feel like they're climbing higher than Sydney house prices. The first thing you need to know is that there's no single universal cutoff. When people say the cutoff score is 90, they're usually oversimplifying. The truth is, there are different score pressures depending on your occupation, your visa pathway, and even which state or territory you're looking at. For engineers, IT professionals, and accountants, the competition is brutal. Secondary school teachers in regional areas, let's just say the queue isn't quite as long. Why the scores keep creeping up? Okay, so why do the cutoffs feel like they're always climbing? Here's the unglamorous truth. Supply and demand. Australia runs its skilled migration system like a market. The government sets a quota for how many people it wants in different categories. Then it waits to see how many applicants show up. If there are more applicants than seats at the table, only the top scorers get served. Now, add a few twists. After the pandemic, there was a backlog of people desperate to get in. At the same time, the government kept saying, "We need skilled migrants to fill shortages." That brought in even more applicants. But the actual number of visas being handed out? Still limited, and when demand outweighs supply, the points naturally shoot up. So, if you've been wondering whether the government is just messing with you, no. It's basically economics, but with your migration dream attached. The behind-the-scenes filters nobody talks about. Here's where it gets really interesting. The cutoff isn't just about the total points you see on your EOI. There are hidden filters. Things that don't make it to the flashy headlines, but quietly decide who actually gets the golden email. For example, there are occupation ceilings. Even if you've got a stellar score, if your job category has already hit its annual cap, you're stuck waiting. It's like turning up at a restaurant 5 minutes after they've run out of your favorite dish. Invitation rounds also play a role, as the department doesn't just send out invites every day. They run batches. That means timing can play a sneaky role. Someone with fewer points could get an invite before you, simply because they applied just before a round, while your EOI was still sitting in the digital queue. Also, if you're going for state nomination, the cutoffs can look completely different. States pick people based on what they actually need, not just who has the highest score. So, while the federal program might favor someone with 95 points, a state might tap you on the shoulder at 80 because you're a nurse in a regional town crying out for staff. These little behind-the-scenes filters make the whole system feel inconsistent, but they're very deliberate. Why your high score might still mean nothing. This is the part that frustrates most applicants. You've slogged it out, boosted your English score, done a skills assessment, maybe even grabbed some extra work experience, and you're sitting proudly on 90 points. Then you wait, and wait, and wait. Here's the thing. Having a high score doesn't guarantee an invite. It's not like passing an exam where 90 out of 100 always means you pass. It's relative. Your 90 might look great until you realize half of India's IT professionals also have 90. Suddenly you're not at the front of the line anymore. So, yes, high scores improve your chances, but the cutoff is always shifting depending on who else is in the game. Why some people with lower scores sneak in. This one stings. You're sitting on a mountain of points, but then you hear someone with 75 points just got nominated by a state. How? Simple. The states and territories don't care about bragging rights. They're filling local skill shortages. If a rural hospital needs nurses yesterday, they're not waiting for the 95-point candidates who prefer to stay in Melbourne. They'll happily invite a 75-pointer willing to live where they're needed. In other words, sometimes it's not about how high you jump. It's about jumping in the right direction. What the government doesn't say out loud. Now let's talk about the less obvious stuff. Things that aren't openly announced but absolutely influence cutoffs. Political pressure. Migration numbers are always a hot topic. One year the government wants to open the doors. The next year they're under pressure to slow things down. This push and pull affects how many invitations go out and, in turn, how high the cutoffs climb. Economic trends can also influence an invitation. If the job market is shaky, the government gets cautious. If unemployment creeps up, they don't want to look like they're favoring migrants over locals. That can slow down invitations and push scores higher, even when shortages technically exist. There can also be administrative backlogs. Sometimes it's not policy at all, it's paperwork. If the department is drowning in applications, they invite fewer people just to keep the system manageable. From the outside, it looks like cutoffs went up. But really, it's just bureaucracy hitting the brakes. Why chasing the cutoff alone is a mistake. A lot of people get tunnel vision on the cutoff. They think, if I just reach that magic number, I'm set. But the reality is more complicated. It's not just about points. It's about strategy. Which occupation you nominate, whether you're open to regional areas, whether you target a state with a smaller queue. Even the timing of your EOI lodgement can make a difference. Think of it like playing a game of chess. If you're only focused on moving your queen, you'll miss the fact that your pawn could win the match. Let's be real, following cutoff scores is exhausting. Every time the department announces a round, people rush online, swap notes in forums, and either celebrate or spiral into despair. It's like watching a never-ending sports match where the rules keep changing. But here's the perspective shift. The cutoff is not a personal judgment. It's not saying you're unworthy, it's simply a function of the system. The same score that feels hopeless in one occupation might get you an invite tomorrow if you reposition yourself. What you can actually do about it. Here's the practical bit. Instead of obsessing over the moving cutoff, focus on the levers you can control. Improve your English test results. Get those extra years of work experience recognized. Explore state and regional pathways, and keep your EOI updated and ready to go. And most importantly, don't put all your eggs in one basket. The people who succeed are the ones who look at multiple routes as they stay flexible. At the end of the day, the cutoff score is less about you and more about the system balancing its own needs. It's messy, frustrating, and often feels unfair, but there is a method in the madness. Australia isn't trying to make you suffer. It's trying to juggle its labor shortages, economic conditions, and political climate, all while dealing with thousands of hopeful applicants. So, if you're sitting there wondering whether the cutoff is some cruel joke, the answer is no. It's just the byproduct of a system under pressure. Cutoff scores will always be the headline grabber, but they're not the full story. So, the next time someone says, the cutoff score is 90, don't just panic.